This is Roger Simon.
And Lionel Chetwynd.
Welcome back to Pollywood. Matt Atchity and Rotten Tomatoes in a minute. But first, in honor of Father's Day, our tweet of the week from Ronan Allen. Happy Father's Day, or as they call it in my family, Happy Brother-in-Law's Day. Of course, Mom had a retweet.
Well, that would be good enough by itself, but it got better. Boom! Happy Father's Day, or as they call it in my family, Happy Brother-in-Law's Day. Boom! I love it.
Is the tweet better than the retweet?
Well, I liked it because, Mia Farrow, actually, she's been rather discreet. She's going to be very quiet about Woody Allen's. Although his son said it's an amoral act. The other thing I would notice is that his son has dumped all those arty, Upper West Side, stupid leftist names. They're named like Satchel after Satchel Paige, like,
Right, look, the guy's got to be.
I think he wanted to add Obama.
The guy's got to be. He's the only authentic blood child of Woody and Mia, and it's his sister that Woody ran off with, so brother-in-law's aid. Which leads us to our topic of the day, which is Hollywood politics. Is it real or is it Memorex?
Is it real or is it Memorex? Well, pulling things out of memory, my high spot of the week was it was discovered that on a program called Game of Thrones, unnaturally HBO, which really is as good as MSNBC rather, they had a head impaled on a stick, and it was a head of George W. Bush.
Really?
Yes. And when they confronted
in the Middle Ages too.
In the Middle Ages, yes.
Before there was a George W. Bush.
Oh, he was there. He was there. The Inquisition, you name it, he was there. And they asked the producers, well, why would you do this? Oh, it's not a political statement. We meant nothing by it. We needed a head to put on a stick, and that was hanging around.
It's really, the funny part about it is you envision HBO having a prop room with all the heads in it, and they're all George W. Bush.
I've been in a lot of studios in my time.
Maybe they have some Romney heads now.
Yeah, including Chinny. Oh, yeah, right. Including Chinny. Oh, Romney they would have, including Chinny Chitab. Never heard of hey, go out to the grip wagon and go into the head bag and bring me out the first head you see. That's insane.
Okay, well, that's on the level of levity. But here's on the level of serious politics. We understand that Lord Steven Spielberg, of which there's no higher person in Hollywood, was approached by the Obama campaign for what?
Well, they wanted his input. We talk about the intersection of politics and the popular culture. It's the name of the show. Yes, it is. And it's been very interesting of late because we have, for the first time probably since the 50s, the conservative community in Hollywood has reached a critical mass. There's enough of us now to have debates, to have factions.
Or make a movie.
To make a movie. It's no longer what it was. It's out in the open, people. And we are, for the first time, able to ask ourselves, well, what is our role? How do we define ourselves?
Can you get a table at a good restaurant?
Oh, yeah, we can now, because some of us are working to get money, which is all that ever really counted, much to the liberals' despair to discover it wasn't a moral high ground that enabled them to get the front table at Spago. But the question is becoming, well, what do we do? Well, the only model we have are the liberals. And so the question is, what do we learn from the liberals? Because, yes, they went to Spielberg.
Don't be them.
And what did Spielberg tell them to do? He said, go see my marketing people, right?
Right.
And his marketing people said, you never know what the truth is, but they said they were the ones that suggested they go out after Bain Capital, attack him on the basis of Bain Capital.
Yeah, that worked out just great.
Oh, yeah, certainly been the worst idea they ever got, which makes you wonder, who are Spielberg's marketing people? I ask you that.
Well, here's the other question, though. You said just before, what do we do? Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things is I think we'd be Zen. In other words, we do nothing. Because I think the public itself doesn't want to hear from Hollywood people at all about politics. And it won't be helpful for all of a sudden Robert Duvall to come out and make a statement. I don't think it means anything.
Well, I mean, the point is, Spielberg has obviously had great success with films that have been launched with a great deal of money. But I don't think anyone would accuse in fact, almost any film coming out of Hollywood of having been particularly concerned with truth or historical accuracy or any of those things.
Well, we know that now because of the new news about Munich.
Well, do you want to talk about that? Because, I mean,
briefly,
the film Munich.
Well, I mean, briefly it came out. Some papers of the German intelligence service were released, and it turns out that the Palestinian terrorists were aided by a neo-Nazi who is actually a crime writer. I'm one too.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not gonna...
You wrote crime novel. It's all you crime novel writers.
Crime novel. This guy
people.
was a neo-Nazi. I was a lot of things. I was a liberal, but I wasn't a neo-Nazi.
By the way, can I just say something? There's no such thing as a neo-Nazi, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
There are Nazis, and there are not Nazis.
Yeah, that's really...
There's no such... That's
right.
just a... Okay, sorry,
anyway, he was a Nazi. So, so you know, that makes Spielberg's Munich movie look ridiculous, really. Because it was all about, oh, let's weigh our vengeance and so forth. You know, it's like, oh, Hitler's in the bunker, let's weigh the vengeance. You know, it's...
Well, I would have thought that anyone who was actually creating a film about that would have done at least a minimum amount of research into it to see whether or not there are any connections, because that would have seemed an obvious plot twist to take. Now, Kushner obviously did not do that.
They don't do research.
No, I don't. Well, in fact, I did this panel once with Steve Zalian, and he said, well, when we embarked on Schindler's List, Stephen and I made a conscious decision not to learn anything about the Holocaust, not to read about it, in fact, to block our minds to everything except Oscar Schindler.
Well, you know...
That's a very narrow horizon.
Well, that explains
for examining
to me,
one of the most extraordinary events in human history.
That's an interesting thing, because it explains to me why Schindler so outgrossed my own script with Paul Mazursky of Enemies, a Love Story, because we did endless research on the Holocaust.
And you reflected a real world. And, yeah, I know. It
we made a big mistake. Okay.
Yeah. Now, but Sheinberg spending $400 million wanting
so speaking of big mistakes,
yes,
I took one for the team this week.
Oh, yeah. You are one of the 4 people in America who this week did something I could not bring myself to do, a pilgrimage I could not make, an homage to you, crime writer. You went to see Adam Shankman's, right away you could have stopped, Rock of Ages.
Oh, yes. Well, you know...
Tell me, what did I miss?
Well, you missed...
I'm being sarcastic.
Absolutely nothing. Because it was an extremely painful experience going to this movie about 1980s rock and roll, starring, you know, the 50-year-old Tom Cruise as a 30-year-old Axl Rose. It was like if Mel Brooks had actually made the movie, it would have been great.
But anyway, Mel Brooks wouldn't have cast Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise has never done less than 20 million opening weekend. Not even Days of Thunder did less than that.
I think he's headed downwards. This is a bad week for big stars.
It's $12 million.
I think Adam Sandler on the decline too.
Well, Adam Sandler's out of contact with his inner self. He's making films that are just...
He's not making movies for his base.
You know, for his base. You know, it's interesting. You look at that and what's happening with Adam Sandler in the series of films he's made. And it's, you know, when there was a studio system, there would have been someone there to say, Sandler, you're not making that movie. You're an idiot. This is what you do. You do it good. Now go and do it.
Right.
And it's what made Bogey, it's what made all of those great stars is they found a truth within themselves that they could communicate to the vast American public. Adam Sandler, you know, was a sweet man and a smart guy, by the way. He's very clever and talented and gifted. He's gifted. But clearly, I mean, you'd have to say he's got no one around who was his habit. Don't do that.
Don't do that. We could perform that function. Maybe they could run the scripts through us. Anyway.
For a fee.
Anyway, speaking of scripts, let's turn over to Rotten Tomatoes now and have a look at what's coming up soon.
Hi, this is Matt Atchity, Editor-in-Chief of RottenTomatoes.com, here to let you know what's fresh and what's rotten in theaters this weekend. First up is Brave, which is the latest film from Pixar. This is a fairy tale basically set in Scotland. It's not exactly Scotland, but you're supposed to think it's Scotland. About a princess who doesn't want to just do the princess thing. It's an adventure story. Critics are mostly liking this. It's about 75% on the tomato meter right now, which is good because Pixar's only rotten movie was their last one, Cars 2, and everyone's hoping they're going to redeem themselves here. Next up is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, a film that's produced by Tim Burton and directed by Timur Bekmambetov. He is the director of Wanted. And this one is about, you guessed it, Abe Lincoln hunting vampires. This is based on a novel that was pretty popular. Some of the critics are really split on this. It's about 50% on the tomato meter right now. Some of them kind of like it. They say it's kind of over the top and kind of fun. But the general complaint seems to be that it actually doesn't go far enough, unfortunately. So if you're looking forward to this film, kind of go in knowing what to expect. Next up is a movie called Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. This one, it's exactly what you're expecting, although it stars Steve Carell and Keira Knightley. Now, Steve Carell plays a guy who his wife leaves him right before the world is about to end, and so he starts hanging out with his neighbor, played by Keira Knightley, this free spirit. I'm not going to ruin the ending of this film for you, but it does tell you what's going to happen in the title. Now, the critics are kind of split on this one. It's about 57%. A lot of critics say that it almost works. It's kind of an interesting story, but some of them say that it's a little too distracted with the whole end of the world bit. Last up this week is Woody Allen's latest, a film called To Rome with Love. Last year, everybody loved his latest film, Midnight in Paris. This one, the critics aren't so wild about. It's only 30% on the tomato meter. It's the story of a few different groups of people in Rome. It stars Jesse Eisenberg, Alec Baldwin, Woody Allen makes an appearance himself. It's an okay movie. I thought it was all right, but most of the critics don't really care for it, and they say it's a pretty weak follow-up to Midnight in Paris. That's only in limited release, though. Those are all the big movies in theaters this weekend, plus one indie movie. Make sure to check back on RottenTomatoes.com to see the latest tomato meter scores, or if you'd rather stay home and watch a DVD, you can get some good recommendations there too.
Thanks, Matt. We'll be looking forward to all those films. This is Roger Simon.
And Lionel Chetwynd.
Next week at Bollywood.